Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday night and it is past 7:30 p.m. British time. And that can only mean one thing, Maku, and that is that we are ready to go racing for ORL Split A round 13 at the notorious Spa-Francorchamps Grand Prix. How excited are you for this one, Maku?
I have to say I'm very excited, especially because Spa is that special track, and I think it's the longest track of the circuit. And what I've seen is that Formula Danny is racing tonight, I think. So I hope we see some action on the track.
As you mentioned, Formula Danny should be racing tonight. He won last year, as we saw from that intro video. But just in case you guys forgot what happened last time we were here, let's take a step back and just recap what happened back in Season 10 when we made our way to the fantastic Belgium circuit. Velocity Hypers lines up on the front row of the grid alongside Photon, but it's lights out and away we go. It looks like it's a very good start from the Haas of Andinator, as here we go into turn one. The Hypers will go defensive, but look at Lehman. He's looking for the inside into turn one. Can he get the drive? No, he can't, but it's going to be Mark moving up into fourth place. There's Photon looking for the inside onto Hypers into turn two. Mark's looking quite racy as well. Photon won't be able to make the move work as that's a racing point going very wide in this contact. Wow has picked up a 3-second time penalty as well, but Mr. Anchor round the outside should get the better traction. Andinator goes defensive, Zones round the outside. Can he hold it? Andinator will squeeze Zones, but Zones is going to have DRS for the second straight. So does Andinator. Zones down the inside as Andinator once again looking to hold it round the outside, but he's now got the inside into turn three as that is Zones going wide, but still side by side. And Zones will let Andinator take the position. Lehman gets so close to Wow. He's going to look for the inside into turn 8. There's contact. That's really going to cost Lehman. Look at everyone trying to break the slipstream. Mark is going to go down the inside. He will push Lehman out wide. The 118.5. Oh. Camille, come on, loses the back end. He's right on the tail of Andinator. He will look for the inside because the Andinator just does not quite close the door. Turn 2, Crucix watching all of this unfold. Andinator looks up. Now Crucix looking to get the run. Andinator, the two horses side by side into turn 3, but Cruz is being an impeccable race. 35 laps of absolute masterclass. Hypers takes the win. Sorry for that. I decided that I'd bring in a bit of a surprise. I know you guys were expecting last year's video of Spa. Well, we got a recap of what happened last time out at Hungary. And I'm sure that won't be the only of our surprises that we'll have for you tonight. As Maki mentioned, Formula Danny is going to be racing tonight. But before we take a look at the grid that will be racing, let's just recap where that epic Hungary race left us in the championship standings. In the driver's standings, Hypers closes the gap to Photon, whose lead is now just 14 points. Lehman moves up to third place after yet another podium finish. Mark returning to the scene, he climbs up to 6th place after his 4th place finish. Another solid drive from Zones sees him climb up to 16th after just 2 races in ORL. In the Constructors' Championship, the battle for the top spot heats up as Mercedes close their deficit to just 8 points. Alfa Romeo have dropped behind Ferrari and Williams, with the latter only 1 point off 4th after another podium from Lehman. Wow, so Marku, things really tightening up here at the top of the standing. The Hypers closing back up to Photon now. As you mentioned though, Formula Danny turning up, this is just going to add a little bit more spice to the mixture.
Yeah, of course, and we have Photon, Hypers. I think Napadovsky is joining us too, right?
Yes, I believe so.
and Formula Danny, and we're like 4 of the first 5 at least joining. I didn't check if Lehman will come. But what do you think about Calcifer? Because he had a few incidents in the last races.
Well, it's funny you should bring that one up, Maku, because I have compiled a little video of Calcifer's incidents. As you mentioned, Calcifer has been on the wrong side of the tarmac in the last 3 races. So let's just take a look at a couple of those incidents, and we'll start off with this one here at Hungary. So, not Hungary, at Britain, pardon me. So starting off the lights, Calcifer gets a decent start. You can see Photon starting alongside him on the inside. A lot of spray, has a bit of a moment, shifting up into 4th gear. Sauber comes across him, and that's Calcifer straight into, well, the gravel. And that's practically his race over right there. Never really going to get further from that point onwards. Then we cut over to Germany. Once again, on lap 1, a decent start, and this is the glitch that happened. So you see, Wow backs off here. Calcifer goes straight into his back end, loses part of his front wing, and again, that's another race ruin. Has to come into the pits for an early pit stop. And now, the final incident. Here we go, Hungary. This time we're riding on board with Krusix, who was somewhat the perpetrator of this incident. Now, you can see Calcifer just up ahead, gets a good run coming into turn 2, but Krusix spots an open inside, looks for the inside, ever so slight bit of contact, Krusix loses the back end, ends up turning back into Calcifer. Calcifer sent spinning, and a third race where, at the end of the opening lap, he finds himself at the back of the grid. And I just feel that none of these have been his fault, but he's always been getting involved in these incidents. And I remember when I started commentating for ORL last year back at Spain, every single race, Calcifer was Mr. Consistent. Didn't matter what happened, he was never involved in an incident. There was one incident all season. Every other time, he'd finish literally the best he could do, kind of Alonso-esque when we think back to Alonso's run in the Ferraris back in 2012 and 2013. But this season, everything just seems to be going wrong for him.
Yeah, but I think, as you said, it's not his. Not all of them. I think maybe the last one could be a little bit of his fault, but the rest one isn't. And I think he is actually a clean driver, and but in racing, incidents happen, and I think you have to accept that. And I think without incidents, racing would also be sometimes kind of boring.
And it's such a shame because, we keep on hyping him up. Current champion. I've been talking to him recently. He's been going for some of those F1 esports events that the tryouts that you can do on the game itself, and he's been doing well. He's right up there with the likes of Photon, with a few of the other top names as well. So he has the pace, and we've constantly been seeing him qualifying right alongside Photon. So many times we've said he's qualified alongside Photon. Race comes, Photon does really well, and there's always something going wrong for Calcifer. That means that either he's scraping a couple of points or not even getting any at all. And currently in the championship, he's languishing all the way down in 18th place with just 21 points.
Yeah, sure. So I think you can say in this season he's had a lot of bad luck so far. But we will see, There's still something possible, I think.
So before we do go any further, I just want to take a look at all the drivers that are currently in the lobby, so we can confirm we'll definitely be taking part. We've got Formula Danny, Photon, Calcifer, Triton Lehman, Zones, Nameless, Hypers, Wow, Matthias, Paddy, Kaboom, Mr. Anchor, Crucifix, Kopi, Andinator, Rupert, and then, of course, yourself, Maku, and me, although we're only spectating, sadly. But a lot of big names. We've got both of those Williams drivers who are currently sitting 5th place in the championship, very close to Ferrari. And also, with the return of Formula Danny, is a big opportunity for Alfa Romeo to get some good points.
Especially if you look at the points, the first 5 drivers in the championship are there, and not the gap between second and third can maybe close, but in this race there won't be happening much. But maybe the gap speaking is different. the gap between fourth and fifth can change, because between Formula Danny and Lehman, I think they're both really good drivers, and maybe we'll see some battle for the points today.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of give a little flavor of what we might be seeing coming into this race. As I've kind of hyped up a few weeks ago, I was at the F1 esports event for round 3. One of the tracks they were at was Spa. Formula Danny racing against, I can't remember, it was one of the Red Bull esports drivers. It was absolutely incredible. It was literally just a slipstream fiesta. Formula Danny played it absolutely masterfully. Last lap, he ensured that he was in second place, got the run through Eau Rouge, took first, job done. And I think that not only are we going to be seeing this in the battle for first, but all the way down the grid. If there is a big fight for a position, that last lap, being in second place and getting that run all the way from the bottom of the hill from La Source through Eau Rouge and then heading towards Les Combes is going to be vital.
Yeah.
Right.
I think with that you can win in Spa nearly everything, even if you start in the midfield of the grid.
Now, of course, as you mentioned, we do have most of our drivers taking part. With that said and done, though, we have a final little video to show you. And our driver of the day from last week, Velocity Hypers, give us a little tour around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit.
Hello everyone, and my name is Vulture Hypers, and welcome to the track guide for online racing league around Belgium, one of the most famous circuits on the F1 calendar. We're gonna start it off by getting a nice exit out of the final corner, preparing for the tricky turn 1. A brake just after the 100-meter board. Use first gear, it's a very slow corner. Make sure you don't use that outside curve, as that's gonna unsettle your car and ruin your exit onto that flat out section over 20 seconds with the gas down to the bottom. Eau Rouge and Radion are flat, however you want to minimize the path you have around the corner, so you want to take the shortest possible line without cutting the corner. Into the second sector we go after the long straight. Here I don't want to use that curve, but you want to use a lot of the second one and a lot of the third one. This is actually the quickest way around that corner, at least for me. And down into the two off-camber corners of sector 2. Here you don't want to really stick to the apex all too much, but you want to stick to it on the exit. Through the same thing, use all the track and use the outside curve. You don't want to use that inside curve, it's very high. Through P1, keep it in 7th, take as much speed as you can. The car is going to be really understeer as you're coming in with a lot of speed. Into the S's, these are very tricky, you want to keep them in 5th gear. Both of these corners actually you wanna just use those curves, but they're really tricky, so be careful on them, especially on worn out tires. 5th gear through the next corner, no touching of the inside curbs. Same goes for the last corner of sector 2. Now as we drive down the last straight on the track and through Blanchimont, it's obviously flat. We are in 2019, of course, as we dive into the last corner. This is the bus stop chicane into 2nd gear. Take as much speed as you can for the first one and then get the nicest exit out of the last one as you can. And that is a lap of Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much to Mr. Velocity Hypers for agreeing to do this video with us. Danny did it with us for Hungary, and we hope that the driver of the day in the races can continue to do these absolutely fantastic track guides for us, as they give a lot of insight into, you know, how some of, you know, the top drivers in the league approach the circuits.
Basically everyone except for Calcifer, Lehman and Kopi are out on their outlaps.
And yeah, as you mentioned, we are seeing quite a lot of the drivers out on their hot laps now. I'm just trying to see if we can ride on board with who is already on a lap. Rupert coming up through the final couple of corners. Let's sit on board with Kaboom. I think he's going to be the first driver to start a lap, making his way through Blanchimont now. There's one driver up ahead, but we'll stick with Mr. Kaboom for now. As actually, I think that is actually Photon. So let's sit on board with Photon, who's making his way through the source right now. So, making his way down the hill, as Hyper's mentioned, a flat out, no lift from Photon through Eau Rouge. We'll get off a decent tow actually here from Calcifer, who did just come out of the pit, so maybe a little bit of a strategic play from the two Toro Rosso drivers. Fantastic to see as Photon makes his way into Lecombs, down to 4th gear, pull it over to the left. Just be a little bit patient on the throttle through the final right-hander, now making his way down into Brussels. Drop it down into 2nd, slowly feed the power in. Have to be careful, easy to lose traction as well. Pull it over to the right, use as much curb as you can as you throw it into the left hand of turn 7. Now down the hill we go into a Puon. Nice and clean so far, no obvious mistakes from Mr. Photon. Now he makes his way down into the right, left, 13 and 14 of campers. Once again, using as much curb as possible. Pull it back over to the left, entering into Stavlo. Down into 3rd, and now up through the gears, flat out through the right kink. Oh, a little bit of a lift from Photon. Again, he's also on the soft tires. Usually we see drivers opting to go out straight onto those hard or medium tires, but most of the drivers going straight for those softs. So maybe we're going to be seeing a bit of some two-stop strategies coming into play. But anyway, into the bus stop, nice and late on the brakes after the 100-meter board. Riding as much curb as he can, back onto the power. Matthias with a fast lap so far for 42.6, but Photon will smash that with a 42.3.
Yeah, I think, as you can see, it was a quite good lap for him. So let's see if maybe he can get a better lap later on. But I think for now, that could be provisional pole for a time.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, he's ahead of Matthias. He's also ahead of his championship rival, Hypers. However, one man you can't count out of this race, and you can't count out of the championship either, is Formula Danny, the race winner here last year, and the race winner back at the last race he participated at, which I believe was Germany. Formula Danny making his way to the bus stop chicane, nice and late on the brakes, no lockup at all either. Nice tight line through the final corner, back onto the power. What's it going to be? It's a 42.0 and 3/10 up on Photon. Tracker of a lap coming through, and Christian Lehmann is also on a pretty quick lap. He's been on the podium in his last 2 or 3 races that he has participated in, and he's been on a real roll so far as a Williams driver. That's coming across the line. Tritton Lehmann is a 42.5, so Hypers is going to be in a little bit of a Williams sandwich, as they call it.
But the next one is Calcifer to cross the line, who goes 6th.
Yeah, Calcifer, we saw him on his outlap. Photon got a very good slipstream courtesy of Calcifer, so maybe that's one of the reasons that he's been able to make 2nd place and is that far ahead of the likes of Lehmann and Hypers. Let's go on board with Rupert, because he's coming through now, and he's yet to set a lap. Do you want to take us through the rest of the lap here, Mako?
Yeah, sure, I can do. So now he's braking down to Lecombe, going down into 4th gear, into 3rd gear even, making his way now to the 9th corner, then again back on the throttle, and making the 180-degree turn through Bruxelles. And the left turn. Do you think we'll see some people hitting the walls here on the right?
Oh, we actually saw last year there was an incident where coming through the 180-degree right-hander, someone lost a back end and went into the wall. We didn't see anyone going into the walls for the left-hander after, but it's entirely possible.
Because that's what I've seen more often. In the 180-degree turn, there were some incidents too, but they all weren't that bad. But I saw people crashing out into the left-hander after that.
I know last year we had 2 incidents coming out of Puon, and I believe it was Twin Barrel J and Shez, also known now as Rage, where they both lost a back end coming through Puon and just ended up into walls somehow. It was rather weird. But here we go. Rupert will come across the line. What's it going to be? It's not particularly fast. It's a 44.3, and it will not kill.
So I think he got a little wide in Puha. So because I think he lost a little bit the car there while we were talking about the corner number 11.
Also, Maku, I've just switched from gap to lap time, and Mr. Anchor and Nameless are on identical lap times of a 1:43.007 right now.
Well, what did you from gap to lap time?
The 2 Ferraris, spot on. Bang on the pace of each other. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I just didn't notice that. Wow.
I was just trying to look through the grid just to see how close it was. Only a second separating first to 8th, but it's still very close between, you know, from Lehman to Matthias, and then from Calcifer to Andonate in this battle for 6th place. And I think Photon has, you know, he's got a little bit of luck there, being able to catch the slipstream of Calcifer. Whether that was planned or not is, we might have to ask the drivers afterwards in the post-race interviews. But regardless, I don't actually think Photon is going to drop below 3rd at all.
No, I don't think so, because the lap was quite good, so you can't say anything against him. And Formula Danny had
oh, look at this again. Photon's on another hot lap, and he's once again got the slipstream from Calcifer. This has to have been set up by the 2 drivers. Absolutely fantastic teamwork between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And
as long as it's not as much as it is in Italy in real life, for example.
Oh god. I think it might be just as
okay.
bad. I also want to check after Photon completes lap. I don't want to go to the next driver who's doing a hot lap. I want to see if Calcifer, if Photon will give the tow back to Calcifer going down the Kemmel straight.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, is this just a one-way trick, or is it being shared between both drivers? Would love to see.
Because Calcifer could actually use the points. He just needs 2 points more than Kopi to move up 1 place, and 4 points more than Zones to move up 2 places.
As we've been seeing in esports as well, the general trick is to have 2 drivers on their hot laps at the same time to give the tow. 1 lap one way, 1 lap the other way. As Photon's 42.2 improves by 0.06 of a second. Now he is going to back off, and Calcifer making his way through the bus stop chicane, and we can actually see Photon just up ahead, going pretty slowly through the source. So let's see if Calcifer will close up. There's a yellow flag in sector 1
because of Photon.
Because of Photon, and I wonder if they're in comms or not, or if Photon is just looking. Anyway, Photon makes his way through Eau Rouge now, and Calcifer is going to catch him actually pretty early on, but he's going to get a pretty good tow, and absolutely fantastic stuff from the Toro Rosso drivers.
Especially if you look at the speed. I've watched the speed before on I think Alfa Romeo.
Also, the 2 Triton drivers, the 2 Williams drivers are doing the same thing. Lehman and Matthias. Lehman on a hot lap right now, and Matthias has just led him through heading into Les Combes.
Oh, sure.
So I guess it's
pretty
good.
Busy.
Yeah, good to see that it's not just happening between teammates in one team, but happening between teammates in 2 separate teams. Also, shout out to Nameless, up into 3rd place right now with a 42.4. Oh, massive moment for Triton Lehman, and that's his lap down the gutter. And, oh, he loses the back end. Won't touch the wall and just about comes out of that one alive. Back to the pits, I think, and another set of soft tires will be needed.
Yeah, that was pretty close.
Now, we saw Nameless tie up with Mr. Anchor on that 43007, but Nameless only 500ths quicker than Velocity Hypers right now. So this is absolutely insanely close. 1/10 separating third down to sixth, and then once again a 10th separating from Calcifer down to ours. Calcifer actually improves. He gets a 42.7, so he's just off the pace of Triton Lehman here.
Yeah.
Who else can we sit on board with? Well, Triton Lehman coming into the pits after that spin coming out of a Puon. Nameless, though, I do not believe is on a lap as he clips that curb. And I believe Hypers did say in that track guide, you don't want to take that curb because it's a little bit of an auto spin one.
It was 7 seconds behind in the second lap time.
Also, we would also like to thank you guys for joining us on the stream. If this is your first time on the ORL, well, on an ORL stream, we have this 18-minute qualifying session, followed by a short couple of minute break, and then we head into a 50% race. If you're interested in joining ORL or know someone who might be interested in joining, you can see all the links on how to join ORL down in the description below. We'd also like to announce that we have recently created a Discord server, so feel free to join that as well. That is public, and hopefully will be full of people looking to race in F1 games as well as other racing games, looking for groups, and should be an absolutely fantastic way to build up a nice community. As I'm just trying to see, Maku, who else is on a hot lap. Calcifer is making his way to the pits right now. Kaboom, though, is out on track. Now, he's a 10th up through Sector 1 as he makes his way through Brussels. A little bit wide coming out of turn 11, but I think this is his hot lap. He's in mode 5 ERS, so you would have to go. And unlike all the previous races, every single driver, every lap has been on the soft compound of tires.
Yeah, that's true. They have kind of all the same strategy. Or maybe they have different strategies then. You don't know if they go for 2 stops.
We'll have to wait and see. I can't quite remember how many laps. I think the actual Spa Grand Prix is 40 laps, so we should be getting a 20 or 21 lap race. But Kaboom making his way into the bus stop chicane, runs a little bit wide. He's got Hypers up ahead, who's getting a decent run. What's Kaboom going to set? It's going to be a low 43. It's a 43.1 and enough for 12th, just shy of Kopi, and he won't be able to improve on that lap either. So let's go down to Hypers. He's made his way out of La Source, and we saw him show us that track guide. But let's see what he does now when he is pushing 100%.
So out on the Camel Straight with the DRS open, he's now heading down to corner 7, and of course braking very late, going down to 4th gear, not to 3rd like I don't know who was, but someone dropped into 3rd gear even there. Then down into Brussels, into 3rd gear, and out there again. Be careful. Can crash into the wall like we talked about before. And is it raining a little bit?
Oh,
is it starting to rain?
Might be right on that one, Mako. I didn't check the conditions coming into qualifying in the race, so it is definitely raining. I can see spits of rain coming through, but is it raining hard enough for this to compromise Hypers' lap time? Well, let's see. He's going to come across the Sector 2 mark. Now, he is a 1/10 up. That 1/10 is enough for 3rd place. It's almost enough for 2nd, but he needs to find a couple more hundredths. Here we go. Hypers making his way down the back straight through Blanchimon. Is still flat. The rain starting to come down harder and harder. Does Hypers have enough time? No lockup into the bus stop chicane. This one might have been timed perfectly. Surely a bit of wheel spin through the final corner. Across the line. It's a 42.38. It's enough for 3rd, but it will not be enough for 2nd. and he definitely lost time in that final sector, but the rain does not affect Formula Danny, who sets a 41.9. Absolutely nuts from the Velocity driver.
Yeah.
Now, Nameless is midway through Sector 2, and I do feel, Maku, that we have hit the point where the rain will be negatively affecting the times here.
Yeah, so Formula Danny and Hypers could finish their laps because it wasn't raining enough, or it wasn't raining long enough to make the track that wet that you lose traction. But now, the raindrops are keep popping up on the screen. So, yeah.
And Matthias and Lehman have just started their hot laps as well, so yeah, they're not going to be able to improve. So I have to think that this is going to be the way the grid will line up, though. Matthias going to give a Lehman that slipstream. Matthias currently ahead of Lehman, 1/10 up. I didn't quite grab a glimpse of Lehman's sector time as they came into their comms, but Lehman, he is struggling with seeing a few lockups, and he's going to have to be easy, but this is where the rain is really coming down, and Lehman already loses the back end. This bottom part of the circuit is where the rain is really starting to fall. So, Formula Danny should be lining up on pole ahead of Photon and Hypers. Photon looking in a good position to extend that championship lead. Nameless in fourth ahead of the Williams duo, who will be locking out the third row of the grid. Calcifer, though, starting in seventh. Mr. Anker in the second. Ferrari is in eighth. He hasn't been able... Well, he improved by a 10th after that 43.007 lap. And have Andinator and WoW completely top 10. As Calcifer's going to pull off to the side. And that is the final lap done. Triton Lehman, he's still plodding around, but it is just way too wet to complete a lap. He's going to peel into the pits. And with that, that should be the end of qualifying and getting ready for the race. I want everyone down in the chat to let us know who they think is not only going to pick up the race, because everyone's going to vote for Formula Danny, but who's also going to complete out the podium positions. However, we're going to be heading into a short break. We'll be right back, though, with the race from round 13 here at Spa. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to go for round 13 here at Spa-Francorchamps. Wait for the drivers to line up on the grid. Quickly then, Maku, what's your predictions for the top three?
Yeah, so basically I think it's pretty difficult to beat Formula Danny on this track, so I think he will stay on pole if he will not get into any incidents, and then we will surely have a battle between Hypers and Photon, but I think Hypers can get in front of Photon and will take second and Photon third.
As also, warm welcome to Mr. Crow, who has decided to join us in the chat. Long time, sir. But it looks like we are ready to go. And Maku, it is sunny, but we know how quickly the weather can change here at Spa. Here we go to start the formation lap. It is going to be Formula Danny who lines up on a pole once again. I think this is his 5th pole of the season or something. Photon lines up in second. He currently leads the championship. Velocity Hypers in third ahead of Nameless. Then the Williams duo of Triton Matthias and Triton Lehman lock out the third row of the grid ahead of the second Toro Rosso of Calcifer. Mr. Anker takes 8th in the second Ferrari ahead of Andinator and WoW in the Renault. Kopi takes 11th ahead of Kaboom and Paddy, as Shad picks up a 14th ahead of FX Rupert. Crucix and Zones round out the back of the grid. The driver standings, Photon leads on 159 points, just 14 ahead of Hypers, who will be looking to close down that gap even further. Napadovsky sits in third with 88 points ahead of Alayman on 74. Formula Danny, our pole sitter, is on 71 ahead of Mark 313, who is on 61 points and absent from today. Hayes on 56 points is also absent, as Ethnic Tiarena is 8th in the standings ahead of WoW and Nameless.
And in the Constructors' Championship, we have currently Taurus leading with 178 points, directly followed by Mercedes with 170 points. And then we have Red Bull with 143 points, Ferrari with 98 points, then we have Williams in 5th with 97 points, just 1 point behind. Then we have Alfa Romeo Racing, followed by McLaren, then there comes Renault, Haas, and last but not least, Racing Point.
Racing Point will need to find some big points, but none of their drivers are racing tonight. Photon, though, is going to be massive for... Photon and Calcify, I should say, will be massive for that Toro Rosso team. Hypers, the only driver for Mercedes. And that battle between Photon and Hypers in the Drivers Championship and Toro Rosso and Mercedes is getting massive, as well as Williams and Ferrari. Nameless is the Ferrari main driver, and he'll need to find as many points as he can because both Williams drivers are participating today. We saw some drops of rain in qualifying towards the end of the session, but it doesn't look like we will be getting any of that here for the race, as the drivers are lined up on the grid and they await the 5 red lights. As it looks like we are ready to go racing. Formula Danny lines up on pole. Photon alongside. It's 5 red lights, and it's away we go for the Belgian Grand Prix. It's a good start from Formula Danny. He'll get into turn 1 very, very cleanly. There's a Mercedes looking for the insides in the background. That's Zones, but behind. Hypers won't quite get the run as someone getting pushed slightly wide. Let's take a look from a Triton layman's perspective. Everyone's still in order. No changes in the positions just yet. Does anyone get a good run out of Eau Rouge? Nameless very close to Hypers, and Photon up ahead. He's alongside Formula Danny as we head into Le Combe for the first time. Formula Danny will hold on to the position as Nameless looks aggressive around the outside, but won't be able to make the move onto Hypers. Works in Triton, Layman, and Matthias will be starting to look just that little bit aggressive as Nameless gets a lockup and Nameless gets a lockup and Layman very, very close.
Mr. Aka is back there fighting with Calcifer. He's now overtaken Calcifer for 7th place. And yeah, it's pretty surprising that nothing happened in the stores, right?
Yeah, nothing at all. Crazy stuff, but very, very clean. And, you know, we talked about in the pre-show as well, you know, Calcifer's been involved in these lap 1 incidents. Now, I don't want to count anything before something's happened. I don't want to jinx it, but Calcifer so far, it's been a clean opening lap from him. As you mentioned, he's lost a position to Mr. Anchor, but I believe he still has his front wing intact as Crucix is out of the race. So I'm not quite sure what's happened at the back of the field, but Crucix is out of the race as the Layman takes a little look towards the inside. Won't be able to make anything work. Nameless, though, runs wide, and this might give Layman a fantastic chance to have a go potentially into La Source as we make our way into lap 2. Formula Danny still leads from Photon, Hypers, and Nameless.
And I think as soon as DRS will be allowed, we will see some fantastic overtakes onto the Camel Straight. Because as long as all the drivers can keep up to their opponents, they'll just have the perfect spot.
Now, here's the thing. It all comes down to that gap. And as you mentioned, the DRS is going to be so vital. Will be activated at the end of this lap. Formula Danny, he needs to stretch out that lead to Photon. It currently says it's half a second, but it looks more like a second to me. And Formula Danny's doing exactly what he needs to do to break that toe of Photon. But Hypers looking racy and very close to Photon as Matthias has been able to find a way through onto Layman. But we've seen teammates working together in qualifying, and I won't be surprised if we see the same in the race itself.
Yeah, so basically that's quite interesting because as I mentioned earlier, Spa is one of the longest tracks on the calendar, but it though got just one DRS straight, and the exit of La Source is that important for the whole straight through Eau Rouge and Radion.
And as we saw with that video at the start as well, you know, just what corners are going to be so vital, you know, the action points of the circuit. And, well, Eau Rouge, the run all the way from La Source to Les Combes is so vital. We make our way into our lap 3 of 22. The new fast lap from Formula Danny, and DRS has been enabled. It's time to start racing, ladies and gentlemen. Formula Danny, a 2.5 second lead to Photon, which means Hypers and Photon, this battle is going to be unaffected by the Sauber Esports driver. Hypers, he's got the run, he is close, it's time to start battling. Hypers in the slipstream, moves over to the inside, Photon will not block him off, and Hypers will take second place. No changes in positions in the run all the way down to 8th place. Zones does get ahead of Kabooms, though we see that happening on our timing indicators.
But maybe that's also a tactical decision from Photon, because as long as he can keep up to Hypers, he has this advantage of overtaking in the last spot you can.
Yeah, and we did hype that up heading into the last lap. You want to be on the tail of the driver you're fighting, and arguably being behind is better than being ahead. And you know, it's a very strategic game here at Spa, but it must be so frustrating as well. You know, you must want to race with your championship rival, but Photon, he goes for the more strategic option. Now, can Hypers and Photon work together as a pair to stretch a lead from Nameless? Formula Danny, he's off into the distance, making his way into the bus stop chicane already.
Yeah, what's quite interesting, everybody from 3rd to 8th could get DRS because they're all in. Oh, who's going to? That looked like someone who was.
That's
going
Mr.
to...
Anchor. Mr. Anchor's in the pits for a very
Oh,
early stop. Now, there's a few other drivers as well that I believe have come into the pits. I'm not quite sure who else. No, no one else just yet. But let's.
No.
So we were talking about the potential of seeing some two-stop strategies. Mr. Anchor is definitely... Actually, no, he's gone for the hard tires. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see what his objective is. Meanwhile, Photon, though, trying to follow the weaving Hypers. He's trying to break the slipstream. Photon will look for the outside, side by side. And these two are most certainly not working together. Hypers will squeeze Photon out. Hard but fair racing from the Veloce driver. Photon will have to settle for 3rd for now. Nameless very close by, and Matthias and Lehman are very close as well. Karlsruhe still within that 1 second gap and just trying to tag along. So far, everything is set up for what should be a cracker of a Belgian Grand Prix. Hypers and Photon battling up for that 2nd and 3rd spot on the podium. Nameless, though, will be wanting to take part in all the action possible, and we have to also include that possibility of the undercut being a big factor, or indeed the overcut. Go Nameless close to Photon once again as we enter the bus stop chicane, and they get the drive. Look how close Matthias is. The 6-man car chain making their way onto lap 5 of 22. Once again, who will get the best of runs through La Source? Matthias is going to get a fantastic run. Question is, can he stay close to Nameless as we make our way through Eau Rouge? He's very, very close actually here, Maku, and surely he's going to make this one work as Nameless will go defensive. Matthias on the outside just doesn't quite seem to have the overspeed, even with the DRS. He'll hold it around the outside. There's a bit of contact, and that's going to be Nameless then spinning, and Lehman will follow Matthias in the cut across Lecom, but that is a Nameless dropping down the order. He's ghosting, so thankfully there's no collisions with anyone else, but Nameless down to 14th place, and he may even have to make an early stoppers. He might have burnt out those rear tires.
Yeah, but I just thought that he wouldn't ghost and they would crash into it. That would pretty crucial.
Maku, what's your thoughts on that incident then?
Yeah, basically, who was it? It was Nameless and Matches, right?
Yes.
Yeah, basically Matches had the outside. I think Nameless lost control over it. So, and Matches tried normally to turn in because he had to, and yeah, I think you can count that as a racing incident.
I think I have to agree with you, Maku. Racing incident, but the fault lies, I believe, with Nameless as Photon very late on the brakes, and that's a big lockup that might give Matthias a good chance to close back the gap that he's kind of lost a bit after that incident with Nameless. As you mentioned, Nameless, I think, just lost the back end ever so slightly and just ended up tapping Matthias, and that ended up sending him spinning through Lecom. But Matthias, he is within a second, but he's pretty far back on Photon right now. Lehman Calcifer is also out of that 1 second gap, and I'm not sure if that's anything to do with the incident, if Nameless spinning affected him at all. Is still Formula Danny leading, a lap 6 of 22, Hypers 3.5 seconds down, and then Photon, Matthias, Lehman all joining in that train in the battle for second place. Calcifer's dropped off a little bit. He's currently sitting in 6th, but this would be one of his best results this season if he can finish in 6th or indeed gain another place or two. And as you mentioned, this should bump him up quite a few places in the standings. Make our way into Sector 3. And I get the feeling that Hypers is about to break that 1 second gap to Photon. It's at 9/10 right now. If Hypers can somehow gain a little bit more time through Blanchimon down the straight, if he has a low downforce setup, he might be able to make it work. But no, Photon will stay within DRS range. And that will be coming into effect on the start-finish rate as Lehman blinks first and heads into the pits. And Calcifer will follow suit. And I feel like this is big. So Calcifer and a Lehman into the pits. And the question is, where will they feed out relative to Matthias and Photon once the latter two do make their pit stop?
And especially with tires they are changing for, so they're going for mediums.
Yeah. And Calcifer's going to come out of the pits right alongside Mr. Anchor. Now remember, Mr. Anchor pitted on lap 4, so Mr. Anchor's strategy has completely failed already because he's on more worn rubber than Calcifer, and he pitted before Calcifer. Calcifer will sweep round the outside down the Camel Straight and pick up 12th place.
Yeah. But I think Mr. Anchor just tried to not pit again because then he would be even further back.
The Anchor, he has a moment and into the grass on the exit of turn 9, and Mr. Anchor's race just going from bad to worse here after running in, what was it, 6th place at one point? Although we're focusing on this 3-way battle for second place. Now, we approach lap 8. Will either of these 3 make a pit stop? That is the question.
But you know what? I don't know if, because they're now driving the softs for 7 rounds now.
Hypers into the pits, Photon and Matthias, they will all
them
come into the pits. Now, Hypers in the Mercedes, he's going to pit first, but he's got Matthias and Photon to pass, so he might get held up slightly. No, he won't. It will be all perfectly fine. I don't think Matthias or Photon will be able to jump him, as they just were not quite close enough. But we'll keep an eye on Photon. Now he'll feed out right back behind Mr. Hypers, and Matthias behind him. Now, Hypers out of the pits. He is going to be well clear of Lehman. But Matthias comes out and will feed in behind his Williams teammate. Now, Lehman, though, should have more speed coming through the source, but he's just too far back to get the DRS on to Photon. So, this might actually be the chance for Photon and indeed Hypers now to pull away, as both of them are out of the DRS zone of the driver behind.
You know what I thought it was interesting is that if they're going into the pits after 7 laps on the softs, they need to theoretically pull out 15 laps on the mediums. Isn't that a little bit much?
So I was thinking about that at Hungary, because we had a sort of similar situation. But one thing that I was informed later on is the drivers did qualify on those soft tires, so they would have had a little bit of extra wear, plus extra fuel at the start means that it changes it by a lap or so. So it'll be close, but it's going to be very interesting to see what the likes of Kaboom, Shad, Kopi, and Paddy can do, because they started on fresh medium tires. So if those tires can do about 13, 14 laps, then these newer medium tires for the front runners that are running on a lighter load should be able to make the 15 lap mark.
Yeah.
Now, Formula Danny will come into the pits. He's a final of the front runners who started on those soft tires. Now, I want to keep an eye on Calcifer, Matthias, and Triton Lehman, because Matthias is very close to Lehman.
Wait, Shad is maybe the provisional 2 leaders are just fighting.
Well, let's take a look. Yeah, as you mentioned, side by side for the provisional lead of the race. Nameless retires. We're not quite sure what's happened. Shad will take the lead in the Force India, a team that has not seen many points this season at all. Good move heading into Lecom. As behind Lehman, still ahead of Matthias. The gap 4 tenths between them. Lehman also within half a second of Photon, who is now 2 seconds behind Hypers. Let's ride on board with the Mercedes man who's closing up onto Paddy. Will be looking to make quick work of the McLaren driver.
Basically, this backfield just waits for another like 6-7 laps to pass. That the first 3 will pit, or they're going to try to overtake them if they can get that close.
And Anita picks up a 3-second time penalty, and I believe that is the first of the races. Hypers gets a good run coming through turn 16, and he'll pick up the position without too much of an issue.
Yeah. And that's something I haven't noticed. There hasn't, except for Andy Nader, there was no other time penalty until now.
Let's ride on board with Formula Danny, because he's diving down the inside into La Source. He'll pick up the position. Formula Danny back up into the podium spots. Now, he's got Kaboom and Shad just up ahead, and he might even be able to have a little go at Kaboom heading into Lecom if he can get an absolutely insane run, but no, he's just too far behind. However, Kaboom is fairly close to Shad, but not quite close enough, and can't even look for the dive bomb. He gets very close indeed, as Formula Danny just closes up slowly but surely. But let's take a look at Lehman. Very close to Photon, but not quite close enough, and Photon, Lehman, and Matthias will remain 7th, 8th, and 9th for now, as Lehman picks up a 3-second time penalty. And just as I said, the first high penalty of the race, these drivers, they've been clean so far. Instantly, one of the front runners grabs a time penalty.
Oh, Kaboom going wide, and Formula Danny is easily taking the place.
Formula Danny, as you mentioned, up into second place. And now he's just got Shad up ahead, and then it's just about keeping the car in one piece. Wow, picks up a 3-second time penalty. I have really jinxed the penalties this
Yeah,
race.
you have.
Remind me never to mention penalties again. But Formula Danny, he's close to Shad, and if he can get the run, as Rupert gets the penalty as well. Now, Formula Danny, looking up for Shad, could have a little look heading into the bus stop. He will have a go. Shad will leave the door open. Notices it. Oh, but the Red Bull gets very feisty and makes contact with Formula Danny, who I don't think will be very happy about that one, but Formula Danny, all's well that ends well. I don't think Kaboom took any front wing damage either, but very aggressive nonetheless from the Red Bull drivers. Formula Danny, he should be able to get the run on Shad this time through Eau Rouge, and indeed he will. ERS open down the back straight, but also I want to take a look at Kaboom. Is he close enough to have a go onto Shad? He is very close indeed, but not quite close enough, and he'll still have to settle for third as Formula Danny retakes the lead of the race.
And Foden just fought his way through Paddy, who's now...
Oh, Paddy moves out of the way, so...
Oh, yeah.
Very respectful from Paddy. Knows that he's on a completely different strategy from these three and doesn't want to interfere in the racing in what is the battle for that final spot on the podium. So this three-way battle will continue. Calcifer's dropped off the back of Matthias. He's about 2 seconds off this three-way battle now. So Formula Danny pretty much has first in the bag unless he makes some form of a mistake. Hypers has second in the bag as well, unless, again, he makes a mistake. But we have this three-way battle for third place between the Toro Rosso driver of Photon and the two Williams drivers.
But you know what is really interesting? It's that we are not half of the race, and the first 13 drivers, or nearly everybody except for Andy Nader, are in between 15 seconds.
Oh.
They're really close together still.
As that's Kaboom coming into the pits on the medium tires. So we talked about how long these mediums can go. Kaboom did pit on lap 2, and he's only been able to do 10 laps. So this doesn't bode well for the drivers who pitted early on. And, well, I say doesn't bode well for them if they want to go for a one-stop strategy.
Yeah. So maybe there could be a possibility that all of them plan to go another stop, because maybe the hard tire is just completely shit on this track.
Oh, just going to cut you up there, Maku, because Matthias gets a fantastic run, but no defense will come through from Lehman, who will let Matthias go. And this is great stuff from the Williams drivers. If one driver gets a good run, they just let them through, carry that over speed. They both know the target is a Photon. And of course, them battling with Photon will play right into Hypers' hand. Speaking of Hypers, he's just got ahead of Kopi and is now in third place. 2 seconds down on Shad, who is a further 2 seconds behind our race leader, Formula Danny, as Zones picks up the 3-second time penalty. Stick on board with Calcifer for a bit because he is closing in onto Paddy, who is starting to struggle on those medium tires.
And wow, seemed to have a bit of a moment. I think he just went off somewhere in 13, 14.
Now, I'll wait until the aftermath of this battle. Calcifer closing up onto Paddy as we enter the final couple of corners. Calcifer down the inside into the bus stop chicane. Will pull off the move and Calcifer back up into 8th place. However, what I did want to mention before Maku was, and to all of our viewers, if you remember that video that we showed you, actually, sorry, no, it wasn't that video. It was a video I was thinking of showing, but I didn't. So last time out here at Spa, we saw on the last lap of the race, there was a driver we used to have called Adidas Tracksuit. He was running third or something, got a puncture on the final lap and ended up finishing outside of the points. So just beware, the one-stop strategy is risky.
Zones pulls a move onto Paddy and got through.
My bad there. As well spotted, Maku. As you mentioned, Zones up into 9th place. Paddy drops down to 10th. Zones on those fresher medium tyres. And Paddy, I'm surprised he hasn't pitted. I don't know. I'm surprised he hasn't pitted yet. Because those mediums must be at the end of their tyre life. And he'd only have to do 9-10 laps on a new set of mediums. So I'm surprised he's stretching these tyres out as far as he is.
Yeah, but maybe he thinks that the mediums are still okay, and he wants to keep the soft as good as possible until the end, so he can maybe put a fast lap or something.
Yeah, potentially could be looking for that fastest lap. As we also did see last year as well, a bit of a contact between two drivers down the Kemmel Straight, and was somewhat down to the tyre where a bit of contact and no life in the tyres to control the car. Both drivers ended up spinning, going into the wall. However, we're focusing on the here and now. Photon, Matthias, and Lehman make their way into lap 14 of 22, and they are so close together. Photon not quite close enough to get the DRS onto Kopi this time round, and Matthias a little bit far back from Photon, so I don't think he's going to be able to make his way through this lap or get close enough this lap. But having said that, it is somewhat close, and I'll hold my breath and wait and see. We make our way down the Kemmel Straight. Photon will go defensive. Matthias looks for the outside. Is this the lap? Matthias says it is. Sweeps round the outside and will take a 5th place and what is essentially the final spot on the podium.
And of course, Lehman is keeping close to the back of Photon to maybe do the same as his teammate in the next round.
Oh, Lehman runs wide, almost makes contact with the wall that you've been highlighting there, Maku. But Photon is close to Matthias. Now, can Lehman stay in touch? Does Matthias have the pace pull away from Photon here? He will have a bit of a saving grace in the sense that he's going to have DRS from Kopi's McLaren. We'll have to see whether that will play an important factor or not as we make our way through Stavolo and into the 3rd sector of the lap. Photon, though, very close to Matthias as we make our way through Blanchimont. Photon will look for the inside into the final chicane. Formula Danny sets the fastest lap as a Photon reclaims 4th place as Shad and Kopi come into the pits.
So they both did 14 laps, and I think that is about maximum you can do with those medium tires. So basically, all of the leaders have to do a 2-stop strategy, right?
14 laps. The lead is pitted about lap 7, lap 8,
Well,
so it's going to be
could
tight.
do it. They could maybe do it.
Okay, here we go. Photon goes defensive once again. Matthias will look for the outside, side by side, but he won't be able to pull it off this time and will slot back into 4th place. Make our way through Brussels. And this three-way battle, this is where all the action will be happening. Calcifer, actually, Zones has done a fantastic strategy. I don't quite know how, but Zones is ahead of Calcifer with fresher tires. So, whatever Zones has done, he's done it very well. And I think it must have just been a pure overcut from the Mercedes driver. So, fantastic job from him. Calcifer, well, he had the pace over Zones in qualifying. Let's see if he can close up and find a way through us. Let's take a look back at these three as we're making our way into Blanchimont once again. This is where we saw Photon really close up to Matthias. No DRS down this part, but Matthias super close to Photon. Is he quite close enough to look for a dive on Photon? Will go defensive. Matthias once again looks for the outside, but he's going to have to look for the cutback through the chicane. Close, and once again it'll come down to that exit through La Source.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Zones, he made up 11 places, so he started in 17th.
Formula Danny
now
into the
it's
pits.
12 places.
So you were right, Maku, bang on the money. 2-stop strategy for the leaders here. And if Formula Danny's doing it, you'd have to expect everyone else will be as well. Or is Formula Danny going for a risky strategy? We'll have to wait and see. Photon, though, getting hunted down by Matthias. Matthias once again looks for the outside. Will sweep through down the Camel straight. And we'll have a clean run into Lecom.
Well, the problem is nobody can fight Formula Danny with fresh softs and with having like very old mediums, and Formula Danny having fresh softs. That's impossible. And I think he will be able to go first, even though no one would pit.
This also brings up the question, who's going to blink first? Matthias, Photon, and Lehman. You've got two Williams drivers, so they can't pit on the same lap. And, well, what might happen is Photon will get the best of both worlds and end up jumping ahead of Matthias and staying ahead of Lehman. Or alternatively, it could be the worst of both worlds and he drops behind Lehman and stays behind Matthias.
Yeah, that's true.
However, speaking of Lehman, he's dropped a little bit back from Photon here. And Photon is somewhat close to Matthias. Not as close as he was when he made the passes. And Donator picks up his second 3-second time penalty of the race. But Photon, close to Matthias. Lehman will not opt to pit. Now, we've got Calcifer battling with zones. And Formula Danny is right on the tail of this. However, let's focus in this battle for what is it currently second place. Will be third place after Formula Danny finds his way back through, which is a question of when, not if at this point, as we make our way through Eau Rouge once again. Photon, he gets a good drive. Lehman is just too far back. Matthias and Photon just pulling away from the second Williams driver right now. Photon will go for the inner side, and Matthias will not go defensive. Slots back into third place. So not a lot of battling between these guys, and they're just letting each other through and then doing the exact same move the following lap.
But as interesting as the...
Oh, Formula Danny's had a moment.
Oh. What happened?
He's 8 seconds behind Calcifer, so I think he's had a spin into Lecom.
Yeah, oh no.
I know he was right with Calcifer in zone, so there must have been an incident between Formula Danny and one of those two. We can't say who. I mean, it could have just been, you know, a mistake, you know, a lone error by Formula Danny, but it's not something we usually see from a driver of his caliber.
Yeah. But I was just watching Kaboom and Kopi, and they were just, Kopi just overtook Kaboom in the bus stop, and then with a brilliant move, and then Kopi had a little bit of a moment out of La Source, and then Kaboom just had the faster way down the Camel Straight, and he had DRS. And Zones is picking up another time penalty.
And it is another 3 seconds. I thought it was a 5-second time penalty for a second. However, Formula Danny 6.5 seconds off Calcifer. He's roughly 10 seconds behind Photon with 5 laps remaining. So that means he needs to be finding over 2 seconds a lap if he wants to take second place. I think third place may still be on the cards, maybe third, fourth, but going first place is definitely off the table right now.
Yeah.
However, Triton Lehman picks up a 3-second time penalty, and that will definitely be helping Formula Danny's case, as Kopi also picks up a time penalty as well.
So, I think the other ones won't stop for the other soft tire, because now it's pretty late for stopping.
Yes.
And yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, we do know Danny likes to go for these fun/risky strategies, as he calls them. We saw it last year in Germany. We went for a 2-stop over a 1-stop, and it cost him the race and arguably the championship as well. Did the same in Austria, where it paid off. We saw that fantastic battle between him and Williams Isaac. But once again, it seems that the risky strategy will not pay off for Formula Danny, as we'll have to speak to him as later on as to whether the fault was his own or if there was an incident in himself and Calcifer also.
But I think the reason why he does this risky strategies is just he wants a little bit of racing, because you know he led the race from the beginning on, and there were no real battles with him, and now he's a little bit in the traffic. Well, he's now 4 seconds behind Calcifer, but you know he theoretically could have battled a little bit with the drivers in the front.
I mean, he did get to battle with some of the drivers, although it didn't quite end up well for him. He should get a second chance, but well, it's going to be tight, and right now he's not really closing fast enough to be able to challenge Lehman and Matthias. He's going to just have to look for Calcifer and Zones as Kaboom picks up a 3-second time penalty, and we're also seeing a Lehman falling off from Triton Matthias, now 2 seconds behind his Williams teammate.
Bakopi, I don't know when it happened, but he overtook Kaboom again. So basically those two are really battling, and I think they're battling until the end of the race for the 9th place, for the 2 points.
As Matthias still close to Photon. As to answer your question in the chat, Mr. Cloud, will we be going over to the B class after this race? Unfortunately, not be going over to the B class. We'll be finishing off with Split A, doing our driver interviews, then switching off as we make our way into lap 19 of 22. 4 laps remaining. 4 laps for Matthias to find a way through on Photon, and 4 laps for Velocity Formula Danny to find as many places as he can. Currently sits in 7th place after going for a very risky 2-top strategy.
Yeah, so maybe we can do a little bit live driver championship. So basically, with Hypers leading in front of Photon, he would get 6 points more. That means the gap will close by 6 points. That means Hypers will be 8 points behind Photon now in the championship. Napadovsky is not racing. No. Basically, 4th would be Lehman.
But he'd only be 1 or 2 points behind Napadovsky, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's now 14 points behind him, but he won't get 14 points in 4th place.
Also, Formula Danny, if Formula Danny had won this race, he would have jumped up to 3rd in the standings, but as it stands, he will be staying in 5th place. He'll close into Napadovsky. Lehman will extend the lead by a little bit. However, speaking of Formula Danny, 1.2 seconds behind Calcifer now. Next time across the line, he will be within that DRS range, and, well, will be on lap 21 or 22. He's going to have 2 laps to get past Calcifer and potentially look for Zones as well, but I think Zones might be a bit out of reach at the moment.
So basically, he needs to get at least 4 points more than Lehman, which he won't get. As long as he isn't overtaking 3 guys in 1 lap, to jump in 4th in the Drivers' Championship.
Now, Formula Danny is too far behind Calcifer to get a move into La Source, but he's got 2 laps. He's going to get past Calcifer into Les Combs, you have to think, and then he has to close 2 seconds to Zones. It's possible, but unlikely. Let's ride on board with Matthias first, as he's going to be the first one heading into the chicane. He's very close. Photon will go defensive. Matthias takes a look for the outside, but Photon will hold the position. Now, Formula Danny sweeps past Calcifer up into 6th place, and now he's got 3/4 of a lap to try to close 9/10 to get within DRS range of Zones. If he can do that coming across the line, he should be able to take 5th. Now, don't forget as well that Lehman has a 3-second time penalty. And, sorry, he has 6 seconds worth of time penalty. So, as it stands, Lehman is falling behind Zones, Formula Danny, and Calcifer here. So, Formula Danny has 5th, Zones has 4th. The question is, can Formula Danny take Zones as well? He's 1.2 seconds down, and you have to think that he should be able to secure this position on Zones. He lost 7 seconds with that incident. If he was 7 seconds further ahead, well, he would be right. He would have taken Photon by now, and he'd be challenging Hypers for the win.
Yeah.
Formula Danny is within 9/10, but look at Matthias. He's close to Photon once again as we get a beautiful aerial shot of Matthias closing in onto Photon, heading into the bus stop chicane for the penultimate time. So close, almost touching as a bit of a moment, loses the traction slightly. Now Formula Danny is half a second behind Zone, who's on the tail of a Lehman. Now Lehman really struggling with those medium tires right now, and heading into La Source. That's going to be Lehman running wide. Photon, can he quite get the drive? Formula Danny, though, will be able to find the way through on Lehman, through on the exit of La Source into Eau Rouge we go. Lehman struggling so much. Zones is going to get the run. Up ahead, though, Photon and Matthias battling. Matthias will take the position. And as we said, whoever is behind into the last lap will have the advantage. Matthias finds the position as... well, back behind, all of a sudden, Formula Danny is down into 6th place, and Lehman is back in 4th. Formula Danny, he's going to look for the inside into Brussels, but he's going to switch to the outside. Can he find the traction? No, he can't. Zones will be able to hold on to 5th place for now, and Kalsva closing in as well. Formula Danny, he has to fight. Actually, Zones has 6 seconds worth of time penalties as well, so this technically doesn't matter. Formula Danny just has to keep it on the tarmac right here. Oh, there's a little bit of contact, but Formula Danny will get the drive. Round the outside we go, heading into campus. Formula Danny will take 4th place. Zones will have to slot in behind Lehman. As we're going to take a look up ahead, Hypers making his way into Blanchimont. Now Matthias is well ahead of Photon. Zone, so he's having a look at the back of Lehman. Is so close. Up ahead, Hypers making his way through the final couple of corners. Hypers is going to be your race winner for round 13. But Zones, he tries to have a look. Lehman goes defensive. Can he potentially get the drive? Lehman has really worn rubber, but he won't be able to. Matthias 6 seconds ahead of Photon. There's a bit of contact. Zones gets a 5-second time penalty. Photon will take a 3rd. Formula Danny in 4th. Calcifer takes 5th off the time penalties. Shad 6th. Lehman 7th. And Zones in 8th. So Formula Danny will indeed jump ahead of Lehman in the championship. Indeed, he might just about jump ahead of Napadovsky. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to double check the points after the race.
Yes, so we're waiting for Wow and Rupert to run us to finish, and then we can take a quick look at the actual results.
Yeah, so my voice just went a little bit on that final lap. I've not got that excited over an ORL race for quite a while, but tensions were high. As there we go, Hypers picks up yet another win. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Formula Danny, though, not on the podium, which is, I think, the first ever time he has started a race in ORL and has not been 1st or 2nd, with the exception of Abu Dhabi. Actually, I think Abu Dhabi, he actually got 3rd there, despite the disconnection. So it is Formula Danny's first ever time off the podium. Wow. So final confirmation then of our race results. It's a Polish 1-2. Hypers takes the win ahead of Triton Matthias. Photon rounds out the podium as Formula Danny takes 4th place and picks up the fastest lap of the race. Calcifer takes 5th ahead of Shad after Triton Lehman's time penalty sees him drop from 5th down to 7th. Zones takes 8th ahead of Kopi and Kaboom as Andinator takes 11th ahead of Wow and Rupert as Zones drops down to 8th. He was running in 6th place before the time penalties. With that said and done, though, we're going to be heading into a short break, but we'll be right back with our driver interview. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our driver interviews. Joining us tonight, we have race winner Velocity Hyper's second place man, Triton Matthias. We also have Triton Lehman and Velocity Formula Danny. Let's start off with our race winner, Hypers. Started off, the start was a little bit tense, very close, but you managed to pull a good gap to Photon. I want to know your thoughts, first of all, when you saw that Formula Danny had pitted.
Yeah, I was surprised, but when I saw it, I knew that he just got bored, which I kind of understand, you know. I don't think this is exactly his priority. So when I saw him pit, I felt like, yeah, that's a chance for a win. So I managed to win. Overall, the race was okay. It was quali was a little bit messed up. There was that rain at the end. I lost about a tenth in the last sector, but that wouldn't change much anyways. Got a good start. Managed to overtake Photon. Danny just went away completely. So basically, I knew that in some way I need to break the DRS. I managed to do it in the pits, and from there on, it was a pretty straightforward race. And I think I just got lucky with Danny pitting. It's good to extend. I mean, close the gap in the championship to like 4 points or something now. So yeah, it's definitely a positive race.
As you mentioned, getting very close between you and Photon at the top of the standings. Moving on, though, to our second place man, Matthias. That final lap, oh, that was absolutely insane between you and Photon.
Yeah, I mean, whole race was just about staying in the DRS and then waiting to the last lap. So yeah, I mean, it was calculated. I'm not gonna lie. And then on a big straight like here is pretty easy overtake. So yeah, I mean, the hardest part was just maintaining the DRS, and after the pits when Hypers managed to pull away and Photon was a little bit struggling. So yeah, it was the hardest in the race, but all race was just as I said, maintaining the ERS and staying in the slipstream and not making mistakes, because one penalty here would drop me like 2 places behind or 3 even. So
now, moving on to our fourth place man, Formula Danny. Qualifying, fantastic. You got into the 112s. I know this is your favorite track. Everything going so well. Now, I don't know what happened, but I saw you dropped about 8 seconds. Talk us through what happened going into Les Combes.
Yeah, hello guys. Yeah, it's been a quite interesting race for me. I actually really enjoyed it. Qualifying, I did one of the best laps of my life, but it started to rain from the point when I was in only Eau Rouge. So for me, the full lap was wet, and I still managed to improve and get into the point nines. But I highly believe that it would have been a point 0.5, low point 0.6 without any kind of slipstream. So I was quite happy with that. But yeah, the race came as I anticipated. This is my favorite track, so I started to pull away. By the end of lap 16, I had around 7 seconds gap to Hypers, if I remember correctly. And at that point, I started to calculate an alternative strategy. And I went into the pit for the soft tires, and my maths worked in a way that I would catch Hypers in the last lap, and I was confident that I could execute this maneuver. But when I came behind Calcifer, I ran out of ERS quite early, unfortunately, in the straight, and I lost a little bit of momentum, so I couldn't get as close as I wanted. But I still wanted to brake late and try the maneuver, but I managed to brake a little bit too early, but still too late. So absolutely the worst point to brake, because if I dive more, then we can get side by side, and then I'm fine because I have more grip. And actually, I just wanted to exit that maneuver and slot behind Calcifer, but I barely. I just the tiniest touch you can imagine with my front wing. I didn't even get any damage, and the damage is on. I hit Calcifer, lost stability on the curve, so spin like a noob. But come on, I'm a Sebastian Vettel fan, so I had someone to learn it from. And I lost 10 seconds with it, overheated my tires, and obviously had to go through the traffic once again. but managed to catch Calcifer in the penultimate lap, overtook him. And after I also catch Le Mans and HZ, or I don't exactly know his name.
Zones.
Yes, and we had an amazing moment there in the last lap. I'm not sure if you could catch it in the broadcast, but basically they both wanted to get the DRS. I couldn't care less about it because I was a bit pissed at myself. So I just went ahead. I had zero energy left, so they both overtook me in the straight. And after we did side by side for long corners, and at the exit of Pujon, we were basically 3 wide. After I used all my ERS again, went around the outside with the more grip with an extremely late braking at the corner after Pujon. Had an amazing exit from the first turn of the last sector and could maintain my 4th position for the end of the race. So yeah, it was quite fun. For that battle, actually, it's worth spinning out because that was for me one of the best moments in my ORL history. This league is for me about fun and clean racing, and I know that all the drivers are very respectful for each other. So I really enjoy to be in the field and not just to lead because yeah, sometimes you just have to race wheel to wheel as well because it's a lot of fun around here. And I want to congratulate you, Hypers. He had great pace, managed to break DRS from Photon. Veloce for the win.
Well, we always love it. Oh, sorry. Go on, Hypers.
No. It's yeah. You can go.
I was going to say, we always love it when you pull out those insane strats, Danny, because we get those races like Austria last year and Germany, and indeed as well tonight. Moving on to Lehman. Into the final couple of laps, I was saying to Maku on the stream, it looks like your tires are dead. You're losing loads of time. Then all of a sudden, Formula Danny and Zones catch up to you, and it's like you have a breath of fresh life, and you're racing with them side-by-side action on that final lap. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so it all happened because I went for an undercut, which didn't work because going into the pits I made a mistake and went into neutral. So, like in comparison to Calcifer behind, I was 2 seconds ahead of him, and in the pits when we are crossing the line, I was about 1 second. So I lost a bit of time, and that's why I did have to then just pull back the RS to Photon and use my ERS, and then some stuff going on. I lost my wing with few laps to go on my own mistake because I lost my back end a little bit going through one of the corners, and I just brushed the wall with a yellow damage. And then it was I was basically wanting to secure my position. I had penalties, and one of them was at last lap, which was from collision because main zones collided, and I went not on track but off track, and I got a penalty for that. And but then it was really fun last lap. It like a lot of adrenaline. That was a shame I didn't have full wing because I think maybe I could make a huge dive bump into last chicane, which I was considering at some point, but I decided to just stay behind Danny and get this position. So it was really fun.
It was fantastic to watch you on that last lap, and indeed before when you and guys were hunting down Photon. So thank you very much for a fantastic race. Moving on, on to you, Calcifer. We were saying at the start of the broadcast, Calcifer has always been involved in that one incident. Finally, you get a clean lap one.
Yeah, finally, I didn't have to bid for new front wing after first lap, so really happy.
And then after that point, you were just about tagging along with Lehman in that group that was going all the way up to 3rd place. Do you think that you would have had the pace to close them down if maybe you made some adjustments to the setups, or did you not just have?
I just put a bit too much fuel in, so I lost. Like I had to push really hard at the beginning because I overfueled my car and yeah, the car was too heavy.
Well, a fantastic job from you as well. Good to see you having a clean opening lap, and hopefully get to see many more clean laps from yourself, and don't see you constantly into the pits at the end of that opening.
Yep. Hope so.
Right, thank you everyone very much for your time. I know this interview has dragged out a little bit, but we really do appreciate your guys' time. And with that said and done, we're going to head back to our commentary booth. Maku, a pretty exciting round 13 here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, and a pretty interesting race, I think, because there was always kind of some action going on, and you were never bored. And I think that's also a thing of Spa, because it's a very long circuit, and on, for example, Austria, you do like 40 laps, the same thing, but there you only get 20 laps. But the track is that long that you're always it's always the same, of course, but it's a lot more different than the other tracks.
And yeah, as you, an absolute awesome race. A shame for Formula Danny that he did have that little bit of contact. I think he might have been able to close down Hypers if that didn't happen. Also, just to give you an update anyway on what's happening in Split B, Black Panther is currently leading his home race. I don't think we're going to have time to go to that. I think we're just going to wrap things up here, Maku, unless you have any final words.
No, I just wish you a fast sleep tonight.
Yeah, that's about it from tonight from Maku and myself. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure to follow ORL on Twitter. You can see the Twitter usernames on the screen, as well as mine and Maku's. If you're interested in joining ORL, you can also do so. All of the links are down in the YouTube chat. And of course, as well, we do have a new Discord server that has now publicly launched. So make sure to join that, just if you want to stay in the loop a little bit more and maybe drive alongside some of us. We're going to be hopefully having some events going on. And I mean, just in general, you can ask if any of the drivers want to race with you, some practice. But most of us will be glad to. Final note, Zones and Matthias are tied for driver of the day, each of them getting 5 votes. I think myself and Maku, we both voted for Matthias, but I think Zones was constantly ahead of Matthias in the ranks. It was always Matthias catching up. So for this time, we're going to be giving driver of the day to Zones. We hope he'll be able to give us a fantastic introduction to the circuit at Monza, as Formula Danny and Hypers have done for the last 2 races. That's all that we have for. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for round of 14 at Monza. It should be an absolute cracking race. 7:30 p.m. GMT. Make sure you put it in your diaries. And until then, stay fast and good night.